Off camera, I worked a little bit more on the cover of the journal, and as you can see, I have added the metal gears along with the die cut gears that I created using the gold foiled paper and a die that I had in my stash. I also added some images from the paper collection. I punched out those images using a circle punch, and then I layered an epoxy sticker on top, and then I also added this lady that I showed you before, and I didn't glue this element with her all the way to the page so that I could use it as a tuck spot for two tags that I have also cut out from the paper collection. I have secured the metal gears with the help of little brads, and I poked the holes through the chipboard cover so they're securely attached to the front cover of the journal. I have also embellished the pages with the same gears that I have die cut, and I have die cut a lot of them because every page in the journal has some of those gears. You can see that I have used stencils on the journaling pages, and after that I just went ahead and glued down to the pages all of the elements that I had from the paper collection. On some of the pages I have added clear windows. It all depends where the inspiration will take you. I have done all that after I stitched all of my signatures to the binding. I just cannot work in another way. I need to have the pages attached to the book so that I could know what I want to do with those pages. I usually don't sew any ribbon or trims to the edges of the pages. That's why it's quite easy for me to work on embellishing the pages of my journal after I sew them down to the spine. Right now, I want to work with the inside, front, and back cover. And for that, I have prepared a few layers of paper already. So the craft papers that I have here measure 11 inches long by 4 1/8 of an inch wide. And I have distressed the edges of both of those pieces. I have also printed this pattern from the paper collection, and although the design is horizontal, I think it will be fine for us to use it vertically because we will be adding more elements and pockets to the insides of the front and back covers, and the direction of the pattern will be less important for us. So both of the pattern paper pieces measure 10 3/4 by 3 7/8, and I have also distressed the edges of those. On the inside of the front cover, I still don't know what I'm going to do, but I already have an idea for the inside of the back cover. And once you glue both of these pieces together, they will serve as a background for two additional elements that I want to have on this page, and they will be two envelopes that I plan to place here, one at the top and one at the bottom. For the base, I took a piece of craft cardstock, and this piece measures 8 1/4 by 4 3/4, and you can see that I have already scored it. So the first score line was at 3 inches. Then I also scored at 3 1/8 and at 3 1/4. Then I scored at 6 1/2, 6 5/8, and 6 3/4. I folded all of the score lines, but added distress ink only to the two side score lines, and that's the width of the gusset that I want to have. I added the score line in between the previous two so that if we don't put anything very thick inside the envelope and it squishes down between the pages of our journal, this score line will just ensure that our envelope or pocket still holds its shape nicely. I also used my envelope punch board and shaped the corners of the flap right here. So just punched one corner and then the other corner. Now I want to use another piece of pattern paper, and that's the pattern that I chose. It measures 2 3/4 by 4 1/2, and closer to the bottom of the pattern, but in the back of this piece, I have created the guideline, which is 3/8 of an inch away from the edge, from the bottom edge of this paper. And I also created 2 guidelines on the left and on the right, and they also stand at 3/8 of an inch away from the edges. I did that because I want to create an opening in this section of the envelope, and for doing that I'm going to use a punch, a circle punch. To make sure that I don't punch too far in, I need those guidelines. So I'm going to use my 3/4 inch punch, and I'm going to line it up with the guidelines that I have. So I am making sure that on the left hand side and at the bottom there, I line up the opening of the punch with the guidelines. Now I can punch out the first time, and I'll do the same on this side. Now lining up the edge of the punch with the guideline on the right hand side and at the bottom, like that. And next I will need a self-healing mat, a ruler, and a craft knife so that I could connect the 2 circles and cut out that excess paper that is between them, like so. And this way we're going to get a nice looking opening without any dies. Super easy. Now of course I will distress the edges of that opening. And now we need to punch the same shape of the opening in our craft cardstock base. For doing that, I think I will add some glue, but very little, just tiny drops of glue in the corners of the pattern paper. And now I can just make sure that I center this piece on top of the craft cardstock area that I'm working with. And I will secure the paper on the craft cardstock. I will even add some clips. And now I need to punch again and make sure that now I line up my punch with the opening that I have created before that. And I will punch through the craft cardstock only, like so. Okay, now we have 2 punched out circles here. I will trim this paper piece between 2 circles, like that. Here we have the opening in both the cardstock and the pattern paper. And now I want to add, I think I will go with some tracing paper because it's not very thick. And I think acetate will be too thick for this. So I'm just going to trim the excess that I don't need. And while I still can line up everything nicely, I think I will secure this piece on top of the cardstock with a clip, and then add the glue around the opening. And I will add the tracing paper on top. And now I can glue this whole piece to the craft cardstock. This tab will serve as a closure. So first of all, I need to make sure that I put it in the right place, and I'm going to use both glue and then brads for the accents to hold the tab on the surface of the envelope. I will add the glue to this part of the tab only. I'm going to glue it down to the page, well, somewhere in the center, so that I can tuck this flap behind the tab, and then it will hold it nicely together. This tab measures 2.5 by 3/4 of an inch. I just used my envelope punch board for shaping the corners of this tab. The gold foiled paper is backed with the craft cardstock just for more stability. When the tab is attached to the base of the envelope, I'm going to poke 2 holes in it, one here and one there, and add 2 brads. Next, we need to add the sides here to our envelope. For creating them, I used 2 pieces of craft cardstock, and each one of them measures 1.5 by 3 inches, and they're scored at 1/2 inch, 3/4, and 1 inch on the short side. Both of them are the same. Once you have your score lines, you will first fold your piece in half along that central score line, and then you will fold the flaps out to get the shape of the letter W or the letter M, depends how you look at it. But these now will have to be attached to this section of the envelope by their flaps, and you will start to glue them down from the top corner of your envelope, like so. I'm going to add the glue to the flap. And glue it down. Do the same on the opposite side. And now we can glue these flaps, but before we do that, before we seal our envelope, let's add a piece of clear tape in the back so that it covers the prongs of the brads. And we can slide something inside the envelope without any troubles. Okay, so I'm going to add the glue to these flaps. You just need to make sure that the edges of the flap and the envelope are flush. Okay, and once you line everything up, you can, of course, burnish. That's one envelope. In the very same way, you will need to create the second one. Here is the envelope that I have created. Both of them are the same, and we can attach them to our page. First of all, I will glue the pattern paper to the craft cardstock. And now I will glue it down to the inside of the back cover in the journal. Make sure that you glue the paper really nicely here where it is getting close to the fabric closure, in case you also have the fabric band closure like I do. You could also create a button closure with some kind of a string, or maybe you could use a hitch fastener and some elastic string instead of creating this closure. There are so many options. It all depends on what you have in your stash. But if you also created a fabric or maybe leather band closure like I did, just make sure that you glue all of the layers down together. So I am going to glue the envelopes down to the page. And I think I will have about a 1/4 inch borders from the edges of the envelopes to the edges of the pattern paper. And then there will also be about 1/2 inch between the envelopes themselves, or slightly more. Apply the glue to the back of each one of the envelopes and attach them to the page. And here are both of our envelopes attached to the inside of the back cover of our journal. And it, of course, added to the thickness of the journal too. And we have allowed for that by leaving 3/8 of an inch gaps between the signatures and the fold of the spine. Now we have to work on the inside of the front cover, and I will start by attaching the pattern paper to the craft cardstock piece. And then I think I want to just have 3 pockets on this page. Each one is smaller than the other. The one at the very bottom will be 4 inches tall, then the one in the middle will be 3 inches tall, and the one at the top will be 2 inches tall. And I will attach them to this piece of craft cardstock and pattern paper prior to gluing the whole thing to the inside of the front cover. So let's begin with creating the pockets. You will need 3 pieces of craft cardstock for them, and the largest will be 5 1/8 by 4 1/2. Then the middle one will be 5 1/8 by 3 1/2, and the smallest will be 5 1/8 by 2 1/2. We will need to use our scoreboard, and I want to begin with the largest piece. On the 5 1/8 of an inch side, I will score at 1/2 inch, and then on the 4 1/2 inch side, I will score at 1/2 inch again. So we will have only 2 score lines on this piece, and we will do the same on the remaining pieces as well. So on the longer edge, I'm scoring at 1/2 inch, and then on the short edge I also score at 1/2 inch. Let's do the same here. We will need to trim the corner at the intersection of those score lines, and I'm using my self-healing mat for that. We have a perfect 45 degrees angle cut right here. Now you can fold the flaps, and we will wrap those flaps around the craft cardstock piece that we have. And before gluing the flaps to the cardstock, I want to use my bone folder and just make a line right against the edge of the craft cardstock piece here. So that will be the line. I can use it for folding the paper and creating that additional flap. And now I'm going to put the paper piece on top of the self-healing mat again, and I will trim the paper corner off like so. It fits super nicely on top. Now we want to create maybe a notch in this pocket, right? So I think I'm going to use my envelope punch board for that again. But before we do that, let's measure what should be the size of the pattern paper that we want to use on top for matting our pocket. I think 3 7/8 by 3 3/4 could be nice. Here I have the paper piece ready, and that's the pattern that I chose. We're going to create the notches in the craft cardstock base and in the pattern paper. That's how I put that piece on top of the punch board. I will line up the left hand corner with the mark of 1.5 inch and punch, and then I will flip the paper piece like so, and once again line up the corner with the same mark and punch. We will now need to trim the excess paper. Let's just re-ink this area. Let's take care of the pattern paper piece. Let's make sure that we have it in the right direction. I'm lining the corner not with the 1.5 inch mark, but with 1 3/8. And punch, and then flip and punch again at 1 3/8. Let's trim this little tongue. We will need to re-ink, and we can glue this paper on top of our pocket base. This pocket is ready. We will repeat the process and create the middle size pocket and the smallest size pocket. All of our pockets are now ready, and we can start attaching them to the page. Now for that, we will take the largest piece, and we're going, without any problem, attach it like that to the page by gluing down the flaps. That will be our first pocket. I have attached it only at the bottom for now. For attaching the middle size pocket, we will need to make some measurements, and for that we will of course need a ruler and a pencil. So I'm going to measure 3/4 inch from the top edge of this pocket, so from the craft cardstock base of the pocket, and I'm measuring 3/4 inch, and I will make a mark on the paper like so, and the same thing on this side so that everything is even. Now I will take my second pocket. I will apply the glue onto the bottom flap of this pocket only, and now I will keep the side flaps open, and I will mount the whole pocket on top of the craft cardstock base like so. Okay, and I will match the corners of the pocket with the tick marks that I have created, and then I will burnish. So by doing that, I actually attach the pocket by the bottom flap to the page like so. I will repeat the steps with the same measurements for the smallest pocket. Now I want to unfold the middle size pocket and add some tape on top of that flap. This will make it super easy sliding tags or cards inside the pocket. They will not catch on the paper edge here inside the pocket. I will do the same thing here on top of the flap of the smallest pocket. I think I want to add some labels with the brads to each one of our pockets, And only once I'm done adding the labels and I'm done securing them with the brads, I will cover the prongs of the brads in the back with the clear tape, and only after that I will glue the side flaps of each one of the pockets in the back of the long craft cardstock piece. I must say that applying glue to such long panels definitely takes some time. Okay, now I'm lining everything up, making sure that I have even borders at the top, at the bottom, and also in this case on my left hand side, and just burnishing here. You can add some cards to these pockets, and basically the journal is now finished. These are some of the elements that I'm left with from the cut apart sheets. So I have the file folder, I have a long horizontal pocket, I have one of file folder pockets, and this label, one of the trains, a suitcase, a smaller suitcase, this empty label, and the spectacles. Now I think I can just tuck some of those in the pockets and maybe use them later when I'm ready to fill this journal out. So some of the elements can go inside the pockets, and from some other elements I think we could create journaling cards or ATC cards, whatever you wish. Or maybe with the spectacles, I actually do want to use them. I think I could create just a plain journaling card and glue them down at the top edge, and they will be like a tab on the journaling card. That's just an idea. I think I'll do that a little bit later, but yeah, I think I am going to use them at some point. This is what we have created today. I hope you like the collection from Victoria Designs, and see you soon in the upcoming videos.